I heat up, I can't cool down. Got me spinning round and round, round and round and round it goes. Where it stops, nobody knows. Every time you call my
Kaylor Law Group and McMann, PA. My name is David Kaylor. I'm a criminal defense attorney. My office is located at 3001 Bartow Road in Lakeland, about a half block north of Edgewood Drive. I also have an office over in Winter Haven. That's the city of 100 lakes, Mark.
1,000 lakes, I thought.
That's Minnesota has 10,000. Winter Haven has 100. But considering that Winter Haven is just a city and Minnesota is a state, I think we're doing pretty well.
You better proportionally.
Yes. Now, I will say, being born and raised in Winter Haven, some lakes are bigger than others. I have seen some of the lakes that they have defined as a lake, and I think that they're using a rather liberal definition.
More like a pond?
Yeah, if even that.
What's the biggest lake?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. Probably Lake Hancock is the one, but that's not really city of Winter. That's not in the city limits.
So you can't claim that one.
Yeah, we can't claim that one. Lake Hancock's gorgeous, but it's kind of polluted.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest lake within the city limits is probably Lake Eloise, where Legoland is, and also where David Kaylor's home can be found.
Oh,
so if you happen to be taking
you live
a
in
tour,
the biggest lake.
Yeah, if you're taking a tour of the lake, just wave at me. Out there
doing yard work.
Yeah, out there doing yard work, playing with my kids, living the dream, Mark.
Boat shoes and shorts.
Absolutely.
Because you have legs that stop traffic.
Oh, I do, man. I got it going on. But I wouldn't. That's pretty much what I did all weekend. Outside, cleaning the yard, doing my spring training. Spring cleaning in the garage and shed, and it was just so nice. I wanted to be outside all day long.
It was beautiful. I sat on the porch, had a couple beers, and worked.
Chamber of Commerce weather. We working on what? Like on your files?
On my files, on my cases. I work.
You are such a dedicated lawyer.
It's at least 6 days a week. Saturday I'll take off, but Sunday afternoon I'm dedicated. I'm getting it done for the files that I have to deal with that week.
What kind of law do you even do, Mark, that you work so hard?
Family law. We also are getting into VA disability benefits. We also do probate, but family law is a big one. Divorce, alimony, child support, child time sharing, visitation, what they used to call time sharing. Pretty much all of it. Give me a call at 863-393-9010.
Mark, I've noticed that over the last few years since you've been doing the show with me, you obviously would not disclose the names of any of the clients that have come our way as a result of this radio show, but you seem to have had much greater success in developing a clientele, perhaps because the people that listen to you realize that you're so much smarter than I am. And certainly more conservative, and
that might be the conservative, not the smarter necessarily, but the conservative.
But listening, considering how this audience skews, I suspect that you're probably the favorite of the two hosts of Law Talk.
When we talk politics, I think that may be the case. But you're a conservative guy yourself, especially fiscally.
Yeah, fiscally. I want to, before we get started on the topic. The topic is going to be not visitation, but child custody. What happens when one parent moves the children out of the jurisdiction or out of the state without the permission of the other. So if you have any questions on those, be thinking about them. Give us a call at 682-1430. Before we get started on that, I want to commend Congressman Dennis Ross for the terrific presentation he gave to Lakeland South Rotary last Friday.
What was the presentation on?
Just sort of a state of the union type thing, giving an overview of what he's been up to, and Mark, I'll be honest with you, and I know how you feel about certain things, but I listen to people like Sarah Palin. I just shake my head. I think she's just a nut and not at all impressive. I think she's ignorant and dangerous and a demagogue, and she scares me. And Ted Cruz. Well, what makes Ted Cruz? He's just so smart. He's so smart, but he plays to the rabid base, and I think that is it's great for politics to some degree, but. Sometimes I think that the politicians need to elevate their dialogue, and that's the reason I like people like Paul Ryan and Rand Paul. And so Dennis Ross comes in.
Well, I just say the rabid base, though, in my opinion, used to be the majority 20 years ago. Well, because our society is changing to such a bad way.
Well, you may be right. I don't know. I don't. You got Sarah Palin. Whether you like Ted Nugent or don't like Ted Nugent.
Well, I love Ted Nugent.
Well, but he says things that are completely inappropriate. They're not appropriate. There's no reason that anybody should be embracing Ted Nugent to get the votes that they're already going to get. His role. I don't even understand how this carnival barker has gotten to be where people pay attention to what he says.
Well, I mean, I don't necessarily think that he's anything like Al Sharpton, but you got It's on
He is a perfect. He is. Well, you know how
Al
I feel
Sharpton's more
about
dangerous.
Al Sharpton is. I don't watch him at MSNBC anymore, but to the extent that I'll flip on it
To torture yourself?
Yeah, and I'll see Al Sharpton. I'm like, this guy is a shakedown artist. He's a criminal. Why do they have him on there? Anyway, Ted Nugent is probably just marginally better than Al Sharpton in my eyes.
Al Sharpton's up in Tallahassee today trying to rally for changing the stand your ground law.
Oh God, just go away.
Tallahassee.
Just go away, Al Sharpton. So anyway, let's talk about Dennis Ross. So Dennis Ross comes there, and he's just so honest and forthright. He's like, we're not going to get anything done. We know we're not going to get anything done because this is what I would like to get done. And he goes through and he talks about. You understand my Lakeland South Rotary. I love Rotary and I love my club, and I'm so honored to be a member of that club. It's a pretty conservative club. I mean, you've got a bunch of guys that are small business owners and men and women that are small business owners, and obviously people from that work in public companies and whatnot. But as a general rule, it certainly skews conservative. So he clearly could have gotten up there and thrown out some more red meat. But he didn't. He didn't go that route because that's not who Dennis is. I mean, Dennis, I think if left to his own devices, would try to reach pragmatic solutions. But he was very honest and forthright about why it's simply not going to occur. He's a very strong proponent of a balanced budget amendment, which, as you know, you and I both feel very strongly about that.
What did he say? What did he mean they weren't going to get anything done?
This political climate won't allow it. You've got a wounded president. You've got a Republican Party that is not anxious to give this wounded president any victories. You've got this is a election year. It's just the realities of it is it's not going to occur.
Well, what the president wants to do, really, things like immigration, it's just all for political to bring out the base. And he is wounded, you're right, and that's why he's doing it for the Democrats. But why any victories that he wants would be the opposite of what the Republicans need. You know what I'm saying?
I think they probably could find some common ground. Even Dennis even mentioned a couple of places where they probably could find some common ground, and he's just not optimistic it's going to occur. I got the impression that he wasn't particularly impressed with our current president as well, but he was a gentleman about it. I think he was respectful, if not so much of the man, but of the position that he holds, which I think is the way that people should be, especially those who hold political office. But talking about the balanced budget amendment, of course, I remember years ago there was a referendum on the ballot that said we recommend. I can't remember exactly what the language was, but it was recommending that the Congress pass a law or pass a constitutional amendment agreeing to balance the budget without raising taxes. And I wrote an email to my local state representative, who I get along with very well. I said, well, what are you going to do if North Korea decides to invade South Korea? And at the same time, Israel decides that they want to go ahead and strike Iran. We've got a full-scale war in both the Middle East and Southeast Asia. You're not going to raise taxes? How are you going to pay for it? So you can't just simply say we're not going to raise taxes or we're not going to engage in deficit spending, because there's going to come a time where you would have to do that based upon a national emergency. And the first thing that Dennis said is, yes, I would agree with a balanced budget amendment, but there would have to be some way, a sort of an escape clause under a national emergency type standard. And we didn't.
And how do you define a national emergency?
Huh?
You'd have to define a national.
Well, I don't know. I think you leave that up to the Congress, but what you do is you require a higher vote than a simple majority to get to that. And then he gave the example of, like, for instance, the whole TARP thing. There were a lot of people that were against the TARP bailout. In fact, the Republicans initially were against it. Well, they voted against it. The market dropped by like 1,500 points. They voted against it again. It dropped by like another 1,500 points. That's when they finally voted for it. The Republicans will eventually respond to market pressure, or just as the Democrats would respond to market pressure. And so, I think that just being an example of somebody that is pragmatic, understands that we need a balanced budget amendment, but understands that in times of national emergency, you have to engage in deficit spending, or you have to raise taxes. That's just all there is to it.
He's up for re-election this year.
Every 2 years. Yeah, every 2 years. He has drawn opposition. So, some guy by the name of Cohn. I didn't. Who knows? I mean, the poor Dennis is out there. He's working so hard. He's away from his family so much. And then when he comes down, he's got to run around and do all this campaigning, and he's always in a good mood about it. He's just such a nice guy, such a genuinely good person who wants the best for his country. I have no problem with the guy running against him, but I hope he loses by 20 points, because Dennis is exactly the type of person we need up in Washington, D.C. But what I was getting at is, I listen to people like Sarah Palin, who I think very little of. And I think to myself, how is she the same member of the Republican Party? How is she a member of the same Republican Party that I'm a member of? And then I see Dennis Ross, and I think to myself, that's the reason I'm a member of the Republican Party.
He's a class act, and we're proud to have him.
All right, folks, we're going to take a break, and I'll be right back with Mr. Mark McMann for Law Talk. by the Kaylor Law.
There's all these old songs.
Yeah. This is Robert Plant, I think. Is this Robert
From
Plant?
the 80s?
Yeah. Let me finish up with, one of the things that we had, if you ever listen to the show, if your radio is broken and the last station you were on was 1430 and you can't turn the channel. By the way, we thank you for not getting your radio fixed, so you still have to listen to it. But anyway, what I've said in the past is that one of the things that bothered me so very much about the Republican Party is that, for many years during the 2000s, they squandered the opportunities that they had. And when we were talking either last week or the week before, I was saying, listen, I'm not upset by a Democrat doing what a Democrat does. They tax and they spend. Why should anybody be surprised that Barack Obama wants to spend my money? What upset me...
And take more of it from
Take more of it.
And give it to other people.
Yeah, sure, whatever. He's a Democrat. What do you expect he's going to do? What upset me is when my party just spent money like a drunken sailor and didn't bother to collect any revenues to do it. And they took that and they took that credit card and they passed it on to the next generation. And Dennis Ross, without any broading for the audience, hit that head on, attacked that head on and said, from 2006, what he was saying is, when he was trying to explain why it is that they're not going to be able to get a lot done, a lot of what the Republicans want to get done, he said, listen, we control one half of, basically there's,
one of three
branches and one and a half of one of the three branches of government. There's only so much we're going to get done. But he said, you know what? We controlled the House, the Senate, and the presidency from 2000 to 2006. And we turned a surplus into the greatest deficits on an annual basis that our country had ever seen up until, of course, the Obama administration. And we grew the size of the government year after year after year. We essentially did everything that we were not supposed to do. When I say we, it wasn't Dennis. He wasn't there.
They violated the principles.
They violated the principles. That's what I get mad about. I mean, Mark, I suppose you would, if you were, punched by your sworn enemy, you would probably be less upset than if you were punched by your best friend. Right. I mean, the Republicans were doing things that they're not supposed to do, and there are a lot of us that are still angry about it. And and I think that's what's feeding into this whole Tea Party thing. I'm not mad when I get upset with the likes of Sarah Palin. It's not because she's a Tea Party person. The Tea Party came into existence, as I recall, largely for fiscal reasons because the government was spending too much money. They now have
the healthcare law,
and all, too much government intervention. Just stay out of my life. I want as little of you as possible. That's the reason they came into being. Well, now they have branched off into all sorts of different things, and you've got a bunch of crazies running around.
I don't think they're crazies. I mean, Ted Cruz speaks for them, and I think Ted Cruz, he's very smart.
He's exceptionally smart.
He what he's saying, as I said, 20, 30 years ago, would have been like, yeah, that's what America thinks.
He was also sitting there saying that people like making fun of, mocking President Dole and President McCain and people who have lost their principles and things like that. And say, did you hear what he had to say about that?
I agree with it. McCain is just awful. I mean, he's awful. I walked for him in 2008 because I had no choice.
Yeah.
But I wasn't enthused, and nobody else I shook hands with and knocked on doors were enthused either. I mean, the guy's just.
Well, what about Dole? Dole's a great guy. But
Dole's a great guy. I'm simply saying that what he's saying is that they were not fiscally responsible, and when you keep running these individuals, and Romney is in some ways was a lot more liberal, but when you keep running these guys that are pretty much just Democrat light, of course the base isn't going to come.
I don't know. There's something about Cruz Rose really wrong, May. He just scares me. Give me, I don't know, whatever. Maybe it's the messenger. If I probably should listen more to the message.
You got some standing ovations to Rick Perry at the CPAC, and
I don't even have a problem with Rick Perry.
Yeah, I like Rick Perry.
Yeah, I like Rick Perry.
I mean, he wasn't ready last time.
Yeah.
He messed up a few times, I think, during the debates, but I think he's gone into hibernation and he's come out fighting.
Let me ask you this one last thing here. We have had a few arguments in the past, and I said, Mark, one of the things about taking issue with the Russians for invading Crimea is that we may be in a somewhat tenuous position to do so because they could argue that we violated international law when we invaded Iraq. And of course, the argument is, we don't care what an international law is. We don't care what international law is. We're the United States of America. But actually, we do care what international law is because if you listen to Republicans talking about it, the Democrats talking about it, they talk about international law. And you were saying, I don't think that argument will be made. I don't know. Tell us about this Russian guy that showed up.
This Russian guy comes into the office today, and it was very, very telling. And I know that you texted me when I was talking to him to tell him to tell his buddy Putin to get out of Crimea. But yeah, it's very, very thick accent. And anyway, I asked him because we had this discussion about Putin and what about this Crimea situation. And he pretty much said the same thing. He says, just like America going into Iraq. I mean, he's claiming what's his, and he pretty much agreed with it. But the Crimeans want it too.
Yeah.
But he made the point, as you were just making, that America did it. America did it in Iraq, and Putin's not really doing anything differently. In fact, it's just closer to home.
Yeah. And so, when you sit there and say, well, it doesn't make any difference, that's in the past. It's not in the past. These people have memories that go back generations.
They do, and it was only 50 years ago that.
Yeah. Well, they gave Crimea to Ukraine when Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union. I mean, the Crimea, or at least the southern half of Crimea, is as much of a part of Russia, more of a part of Russia than it is historically part of the Ukraine.
He's certainly trying to rebuild the old Cold War, and I kind of like the Cold War, and I kind of miss those days.
You kind of knew where you stood,
right? Exactly.
But the other thing I thought was interesting is that I get a lot of my news from the Daily Show with Jon Stewart.
Okay.
I can't help it. But they started showing. All these people that were talking about that Obama is weak and feckless and this and that, and they kept talking about. I mean, it was weird. Sean Hannity kept talking about all these pictures of Putin on a horse with his shirt off. And I was like, dude, you're starting to wig me out a little bit here. This is kind of freaky. I mean, I guess if but I mean, he kept going on and on. Like 4 or 5 times they kept showing Hannity talking about that picture of Putin on his shirt and wrestling bears and this and that.
It's an impressive chest.
Yeah, he's just, I get, whatever. But and you almost got it to where they were like that they were wistful that our president couldn't be more like Putin. I mean, that was how you. I mean, obviously, Daily Show was cutting and pasting,
right.
But you could see that they wanted. Oh, we want. So what is to me is ironic is they're suggesting that they need a stronger leader. The guy's an autocratic dictator, and yet when Obama takes extra constitutional authority and does things that you don't want him to do, you scream he's a dictator, but then he's feckless and weak. I mean, make up your mind. Is he a dictator or is he feckless and weak?
I think the point they make is that he's feckless and he's weak when it comes to foreign policy. And, when it comes to domestic, he's just doing whatever he wants. So he has stronger words against Republicans than he does against some of these dictators.
But what would you have him do in Ukraine? What would you have him do?
Other than the sanctions, I'm not saying anything else should be done. You're not going to take military action. It's just not going to happen.
Right. So then why even get out there and say the stupid things that they're saying? You can't do anything other than what he's doing. So what are you suggesting that by his prior acts he set the stage for the Russians to believe they could get away with something?
I think that he's shown a lot of weakness. He's not known on the stage, the world stage, to be a very, I don't know, how should I say, very strong leader, somebody to be feared. I mean, one thing you say about Bush and Cheney. You mess with us, they'll make sure that you die. Like
when Russia went into Georgia and basically took over that country?
No, I'm simply saying when mess with us.
Right, but from a historical perspective, Russia did almost the exact same thing in Georgia and displaced a government there, installed the government there during. And what Cheney said, this part I did see, well, we had some sanctions. And that's all he could say. The exact same thing happens, and he comes up with some sanctions. So all this tough talk, Dick draft dodging Cheney, he of 5 or 6 deferments during the Vietnam War, the exact same situation was presented to his administration. The Cheney administration, wasn't the Bush administration, the Cheney administration, at least the first 4 or 5 years, and they got some sanctions. That's about it. But yet he accuses Obama of being feckless and weak for doing the same thing that he did.
I think that what they're simply saying is that when it comes to getting these deals with Iran and the nuclear, stopping the nuclear, I don't know all the specifics of it, but I do know that Israel's not happy with it. And again, I heard the other day one of them was saying the only person who's an adult seemingly on the world stage is Benjamin Netanyahu, because he gets it. I mean, the people next door are crazy.
Right.
They're absolutely insane. And when you can only say so many times you want to wipe Israel off the map, I mean, if I'm Israel, I'm definitely going to want.
Well, you're going to take it. Yeah, you're going to take it seriously.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
And we just kind of it's just kind of like kicking the can down the road. And
well,
really
he's not the only one that's been
seriously.
kicking the can. Well, what would you have him do there? Do you support the proposition? And I know we had this conversation.
If they don't stop, you simply do like Russia did, and you bomb it.
Okay. I'm not getting back to years ago. I said, you know what, Mark? There's going to come a time where we're going to say to the world, we need your help. These people are dangerous. We know what they're capable of. Come join us.
People, you mean like a country that's just doing bad stuff?
Yeah, doing bad stuff. And people are going to, I think we heard that before back in 2002 with Iraq, and I think we fell for that. I said, that is when it's going to present a problem for us. We'll get away with the Iraq. We'll go ahead and spend $1 trillion and cost X number of lives. What's done is done. I said, where it's going to hurt us is the next time down the road. And the next time down the road may be Iran. People don't believe us this time around because we cried wolf with Iraq. And my concern was then, and it is now, that Even Dennis Ross talked about how war weary we as a nation and our military is, and then I don't know that we are, and I don't know how. How embraced we're going to be by the world because of some mistakes that have made by previously.
If they don't stop doing it, if you bomb it, what are they going to do? What's Russia going to do? Nothing.
Oh, I agree.
Just do it.
It is so easy for people like Hannity and that idiot Sarah Palin to just sit there and throw darts when they're not in a position of actually having to make a decision.
The president wears mom jeans and he's weak.
Yeah, they talked about his mom jeans a lot.
But he does wear mom jeans. He does.
I did not realize that was disqualifying in a leader.
It is.
Yeah, that was like the 3 or 4 times they kept talking. Can you imagine? But how is that appropriate for?
He should wear jeans like a guy in our office.
Yeah, you want him to wear painted on jeans is what you want.
Painted on. Yeah.
Those are the two
skinny jeans.
Those are the 2 choices. I'll take the mom jeans. All right, we'll be right back.
The initial verdict on the world's
In McMahon, PA. We're going to move on, but I just want to cover one more thing. Mark, I was watching, like I said, The Daily Show and then watching some Fox News, the various talking heads on there, and there were multiple references to Obama's mom jeans.
Yeah.
The comparison and contrast between that and Putin on a horse, shirtless on a horse and like wrestling a bear or something like that.
He's a very good. That's the way he projects his image. He's very good.
Right.
Yeah.
But did you think it was even just a slight bit weird that Sean Hannity and I think Herman Cain and all these kept talking about how great Putin looked with his shirt off on a horse. I mean, it was this homoeroticism that was really kind of disturbing.
I don't know.
What do you think about Putin with his shirt off on a horse? Is that your thing?
I think it is my thing, and I think he shaves his chest. I do.
I bet you wouldn't tell him that.
No, he made feel. Yeah, I did my chest.
There's no way that
because he wanted to be.
I'm not saying that he doesn't, but that is a metrosexual quality that I cannot see him admitting to.
I think he shaves his armpits too. How about that?
That is disgusting, and the FCC is going to yank our license.
He might.
I don't know what he does, but apparently he invades the Crimea with absolutely no consequences.
Yeah, no, none.
Well, good for him.
Europe, they're so, as they say,
they got everything to natural gas, and their economies are so intertwined now. I don't know, but in the whole scheme of things, to be perfectly honest, I really don't care. Yeah. It's not worth sacrificing. It is certainly not worth going to war over. Crimea is historically more historically part of Russia than it is of the Ukraine, and so at the end of the day, the problem is that he's not going to leave. Now, what if he starts gathering more territory?
Right. That becomes a problem.
Yeah, on the eastern part of Ukraine, which is Russian-speaking territory. Now we're talking about something.
Well, Europe. What is Europe going to do?
Well, there's not much anything they can do unless we want to make Russia an economic pariah. But there was a great article. I can't remember where I read it, CNN or U.S. News and World Report or whatever, talking about that the money that flows around between these countries so much. They're so interdependent on each other that it is unlikely that anything really is going to happen because they're going to be hurting themselves if they take too drastic steps.
They'll be hurting themselves, and that's why our sanctions are stronger than Europe's sanctions because obviously we're not as dependent. We don't as those European countries are. But there are a lot of big companies that have significant holdings. I think Pepsi company was one of them, and probably McDonald's, a few others that are trying to come up with different scenarios in case things go down, how they're going to be able to. Because I imagine Putin would just seize their whatever they have in the country.
Yeah. Another thing that Dennis Ross talked about, he said that we have achieved. Let me ask you this. What do you think about, I didn't realize I did not know this. Apparently there are restrictions on selling natural gas and oil on the open market. You can sell gasoline, but it is, I don't know to the extent of the restrictions, but there are.
Restrictions on distributors?
Yeah, on selling our American-produced oil and our American-produced natural gas. What are your thoughts on that?
You mean selling it on the international market?
Yes.
Well, I think that, I haven't really thought about it too much, but I think that us making it more available to Europe, if we have it with this fracking and all of a sudden we become much more vast with our energy, a lot more of it, why wouldn't we try to sell more of it?
But do you remember the arguments that were made, before this? Hey, we need to have energy independence. We need to have energy independence, so we're not dependent to the fluctuation of the world market and dependent upon the hostage taking by OPEC, that sort of thing. And all of a sudden we have achieved a measure of independence, and they want to start selling oil to other countries.
Well, I mean, I think
do you recognize that there is perhaps a bit of a disconnect there between the earlier argument that they made to get us to energy independence, and now that we're there, they say, well, we would need to start selling all this stuff.
Well, not necessarily sell all of it, but maybe sell a little bit of it. My understanding is we've gone really far with technological advances.
With the Democrat president, what do you think of that, Mark? You don't give him any credit for that at all?
For what?
For the extraordinary growth that we've had in the petroleum industry in the
It's all been private. He hadn't done anything. He's actually reduced the amount of leases for such land. Now, I specifics as to why he did or didn't, but this has all been done privately. And I'm just glad he didn't get in the way. Okay, kudos to you. You didn't get in the way too much.
You know what? But that's half the time. When you ask me what I wanted from a Republican or a Democrat, I want him to stay out of the way.
Yeah, he's doing a great job in that and so many other areas.
No, he's not. I didn't vote for the guy. Don't give me a hard time. I didn't vote for the guy. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate.
I can't wait. I'm going to start a countdown. I'm going to get one of those digital clocks in my office.
Yeah, I had one of those for Bush.
Countdown. You need to get one for Obama too, because
okay, I'll borrow yours. We'll just put it right there in the common area of the Kaylor Law Group. Where Mark
I don't know what we're going to do without Biden. I don't know. He's going to run. We got.
No, I don't think he's going to run. He's 70-something years old. I mean, he's like the interesting and funny grandfather, or excuse me, uncle that you trot out for Thanksgiving. Everybody finds him amusing, but you wouldn't put him in touch. I mean, you wouldn't trust this guy with the remote control, much less the nuclear football.
And the other thing, I was reading something about Hillary Clinton and how can anybody stop her, as one of the Time magazines, but I really can't. It was funny because last week somebody went around was asking at DNC convention, name the top Hillary or a accomplishment by Hillary Clinton during her tenure as Secretary of State. Not a one.
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, people say this woman's brilliant and is so accomplished. I really don't get that.
Well, she's an accomplished woman simply by having been elected senator and being confirmed as Secretary of State.
As an individual, I understand that. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that, okay, great. There's been other women senators. There's been other women Secretary of States. That doesn't make her the smartest woman. I never got that. I still don't get it. She's not charismatic. She's not, she's not her husband. Let's put it that way.
You have a secret. You have a soft spot in your heart for Bill Clinton.
I do, because he's the kind of guy. When the thing I never liked about Gore when he was running in 2000, he'd just make this stuff up. Like when he said during one of the debates that his mother sang to him, "Read the Union label, buy the Union label," some song, and he said that he was a little boy, Mom would sing it. But then somebody did some research, and the song wasn't made until he was 27 years old. He'd say this stuff. It's like, why do you say that? Now Clinton lied for a reason. You know what I mean? I can respect that. I don't agree with it.
We're not going to go into what those reasons were, but hey, I think a lot of men can understand where he's coming from. Not me, of course, because I'm happily married.
She's listening still.
No, I don't know if she's listening or not. She turns me off.
But Gore, what are you talking about?
She turns the channel off.
She's going to hear about that one tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. It's over.
But Gore would do it for no reason. But anyway, this Clinton thing, this Hillary Clinton thing, I was reading the Time magazine, and they were saying quotes that she said, and it'd be like, we need to really, really invest in our education for our children of tomorrow. These things that they
doesn't even mean anything. What does it even mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just don't get it.
I don't know. Whatever. Let's move on. Let's talk about some actual law here. Mark, probably one of the things that I know you have seen it, and every father is just terrified at the prospect that one day they're going to come home from work or a mother for that matter is going to come home and their children are going to be gone, and the other parent has taken the child out of state, out of county, whatever the case may be. What can you do if you find yourself on the other end of that? And break it down in terms of an unmarried couple and a married couple.
Right, a married couple, each party has the right to have that child. If they're not married, if it's a paternity action, meaning there'd have to be a paternity, there's no marriage, the mother, under Florida law, is presumed to be the legal guardian until such time as paternity is established and a time-sharing or visitation is established. If they're married, again, either party can do that. I recently had one where a woman wanted to move out of state. She just had a baby. 2 days before she had the baby, they have 2 children together. 2 days before she had the younger baby, Dad kicks her out. Says he don't want to be married to her anymore, basically got a girlfriend. Then he waffles on it. She sticks around for a while. She comes and sees me. Her family's from, she was in the military, actually JAG, Sergeant, E6. And she has family up in Kentucky area. And I explained to her, I says, well, listen, before anybody files divorce or before...
You says?
I says to her, before you file anything or before any parenting plan is in place, you need to prepare and leave and go up there if you're planning to take the children because you have nowhere else to go. Because if there is litigation going on or if there is a parenting plan, an order in place, he can go to the court and ask the court to require you to come or to bring the child back, okay, which wouldn't be good. So you definitely want to make sure that you leave before any of that happens, okay?
You told her to get out of Dodge before any of that happens?
Yes, because basically he was abandoning her. She had nobody here. She has the two kids.
Seems to hearken the old, 'tis easier to seek forgiveness than permission.
Well, because the statute reads that the court doesn't have jurisdiction. They cannot require her to come back because there was nothing in place at the time. Now, if you have
so this dad, and I understand he's in this particular case is not a sympathetic fellow, but let's assume that he was. He would then, his girlfriend or wife. We're not talking about married. We're talking unmarried.
We're talking married.
Okay, so married. Your wife goes up to live with mom and daddy in some small town in West Virginia where the brother-in-law's the justice of the peace and their uncle's the judge and this and that. You're saying this guy's going to have to go up there and try to get some measure of justice in that circuit?
Because jurisdiction would not attach presumably until 6 months up there for the kids and everything. So he would file down here. Okay, he would file down here the divorce. He'd file down here a motion for temporary relief, asking to have the kids the majority of the time because this is where the kids were going to school. This is where the kids' pediatricians are. This is where the kids' grandparents are, and and he has assistance and help. That's what he'd have to do.
But I thought you said that they couldn't get.
No, but he would file it here. The distinction is that the court cannot require her to immediately bring the children back.
Okay.
Jurisdiction would be down here. He just would have to wait a long time, perhaps go through mediation and all that, because the court doesn't have.
So
the
what
power
if she just
pursuant to the
refuses to pay attention to any of the pleadings? Could he get a judgment?
He could get a default judgment against her, ask for everything that he pled for, including, say, sole parental responsibility or her to have supervised time sharing because she fled with the child. He gets that order. Then that order is sent up to. He hires an attorney up in Kentucky, Tennessee, wherever, and that order is pretty much adopted by the court up there, and will enter what's called an emergency pickup order, which will tell the sheriffs in the area to go get the child.
I tell you the lesson to be learned here. I know you have seen it, and I have seen it, that people get these orders and they get these pleadings or they get whatever from out of state, and they just don't pay attention to it until it's too late. Folks, spend the money. Spend at least a few $100 to go talk to an attorney because you have no idea how much trouble this. Don't stick your head in the sand.
No, in that scenario, if the wife stuck her head in the sand, and let's say it was legitimate, say that she,
this guy could have been some abusive lunatic,
right? And she abused it or ignored it. He would, by power of that order, because she had to go down, she had to get it undone. Say that 10 days went by and she didn't ask for a rehearing, and it's outside the 30 days for an appeal. She's got to do a modification action. It's just a nightmare.
Oh, it is. All right, folks, we'll take a break and be right back.
Hi, it's Jim Clark.
47 Talk 1430 WLKF.
All right, welcome back to Law Talk, sponsored by the Kaylor Law Group and McMann, PA. I'm a criminal defense attorney, so if you're looking for one, you don't need to go any further than 3001 Bartow Road. That's about a half block north of Edgewood Drive. Kaylor Law Group. Also, we have an office in Winter Haven. I don't do family law. Don't want to do it. I'm not any good at it when I did do it, but I have found somebody to practice law with that is just simply exceptional.
It's me, Mark McMann, McMannLaw.com. Anything involving family law, probate, VA disability benefits as well. And I'm glad Dan brought us into the 90s there with the music. He threw me a bone.
Hey, listen, quick little LPD/Doug Thomas update. As you may recall, Doug Thomas thought it was appropriate to spend $130,000 on a public relations firm to help spin, their inept handling that never would have occurred if we had decent oversight, the whole Sue Eberly thing. So $130,000. I have gotten a new update that because the reaction to the spending of $130,000 on a public relations firm is so bad that Doug Thomas is contemplating hiring a public relations firm to deal with the fallout from the hiring of the original public relations firm.
That's really is he?
Yeah.
Is he good confirmation?
Yeah,
on
it
that?
was such. Everybody agrees that it was just so outrageous that to spend $130,000 on a public relations firm.
He's going to spend $200,000 on.
Well, I mean, he looks terrible. I mean, understandably, he looks terrible, and he's embarrassed. And actually, he's not embarrassed. That's the problem with Doug Thomas. He doesn't seem to think that he's done anything wrong. So he's going to hire a PR firm to deal with the fallout from hiring a PR firm.
That seems like a perfectly logical thing.
Oh, in his world, that by the way, that's once again, we're engaging in satire. I don't think he's going to do that. I'm just making all of that up. But it would not surprise me if he did. And then anybody that would question him, he would scoff at them and say that I am the city manager and you are the city commission. This is within the job description, and therefore leave me alone. Why do I even have to talk to you people?
You're picking on him because he's a middle-aged white
Because
guy.
he's right. He's a well. You know, we're on our way to being a minority in this country, and when that happens, Mark, I'm not going to take it from the man anymore.
I'm not either.
No, I'm not. So
Brothers unite.
yeah. Anyway, let's finish up where we have Mike Herr coming on next week.
Mike Herr, he's bringing the green beer because it's St. Patty's Day.
Oh yeah, cool. Okay.
Yeah. He said he for sure would, and I'm sure with a few beers, the crowd the audience will enjoy that even more.
You know, I have not spoken with Mike Herr. Mike Herr, as you may recall, is the former county manager. Did just an amazing job, and in fact, the current county manager is doing great work. He left to go with a private company. Things didn't work out. He's now working for the city of Tampa.
He's like assistant city manager.
Yeah, and he really just did amazing work. And so we spent all this time, poking fun at the likes of Doug Thomas. I have great respect for those people who have dedicated their lives to working for the government. We need exceptionally qualified people, and this is a big. We have a tendency at times to have fun at the expense of those people who have chosen a career in government. We shouldn't. We need a lot of the best and the brightest. I mean, what if we didn't have the smartest people in the world doing nuclear physics? Or what if we didn't have the smartest people in the world doing astrology, or whatever the heck you call it. I don't know.
Astrophysics.
Yeah. We need these people. We need the smartest scientists. We need the bravest soldiers. We need great policemen. We need great policewomen. We need all these people. We need good administrators. What bothers me about Doug Thomas is he has proven that he is not one of those people.
Right.
And he thinks he's above accountability. I mean, how many mistakes have to be made? How much money has to be wasted? And I'm not saying the guy doesn't have any talents or any good qualities. Apparently, he is very good at certain things, but he has proven not to be good at certain things and doesn't respond well to criticism. Hey, listen, if I mess up, I messed up. I'll do my best to learn from it. He doesn't learn.
He doesn't learn. He doesn't acknowledge. It's an unfortunate thing, but again, until the city commission slowly changes their opinion.
Well, yeah, I mean, but if you're Doug Thomas and you've got Edie unavailable for comment Yates, who's not going to do anything no matter what you do, and you've got a couple others that are seen to be supporters of his, that relatively immune to his transgressions, I think it's probably rather empowering. And I can't say that I blame the guy. Why not just do whatever you want to do if there are no consequences to it?
We should have him on the show sometime.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do a mock interview where I'm going to play the role of Doug Thomas.
You're going to have his voice.
I don't know how to do his voice. I haven't. The only decent imitation I could ever do was George Bush.
Let's hear it.
The terrorists are going to come here and raise our taxes.
Very good.
We gotta stop the terrorists.
I think we need to have a full 1 hour interview.
Yeah. When I got in trouble for a DUI, if I'd only hired the Kaylor Law Group, I would have gotten out of it. Those guys can get you out of anything. They're incredible.
I think
anyway.
you look like Jeb and sound like George.
Yeah, I do look like Jeb and I sound like George. Anyway, getting back to a lot of the conversations, and these people won't talk on the record, and I get that, but you'll talk. I've talked to folks at the state level, at the county level, at the municipal level. Obviously, not in the city of Lakeland. Some in the city of Lakeland, and they're just horrified by this guy. And they are literally sit there in shock. I talked to circuit judges. I talked to county judges. I talked to various other people. I talked to business owners. I'm sitting there talking to everybody at my Rotary table that day. No one can understand how this guy still has a job. And like I said, I think the city commission is just so stunned that they're desperate for any sort of good news. I mean, they're like I said, they're victims like a modern day Stockholm syndrome, where they are hostage to Doug Thomas. There's really no way, it seems, to get rid of this guy, so they're just desperate for any small semblance of competency. It's ridiculous.
I would agree with that. It's sad. I think his days should be numbered. I kind of wonder how much in the aggregate that we've lost when it comes to businesses coming here due to.
Yeah, you do a Google search Lakeland and nothing good comes up. And Lakeland's a wonderful place to live. It's a wonderful place to do business, and he has been good in the past in attracting business. But this has been so distracting. And when you do City of Lakeland, you don't see good things on a national search, and I mean, it's just time for him to go. It is just time for him to go. Let me remind the City Commission: you actually do run the city, despite what Doug Thomas would have you believe. You folks actually are in charge. So why don't we act that way?
Join together and do what's right.
Yeah, they have hired this outside agency to investigate some of the comments, some of the allegations made by a former personal, what was that? Like, I think he was like an HR director.
Yeah.
And so these guys are the real deal, and we'll see what happens.
Okay, we got 1 minute.
1 minute. All right, Mark, we tried to talk about the family law stuff. We kind of got sidetracked from that. We'll have to come back one day. Once again, we have Colleen Burton coming on at the end of the month. I think John Shannon will probably be joining us. He certainly has been extended an invitation. Who's going to win tomorrow, Sink or Jolly?
I think based on analysis I heard earlier on a Tampa Bay station, it'll be Jolly based upon the way they believe the independents are breaking and the, as you say, the amount of Republicans that are going to come out.
I'm going to go with Sink, but I think it's going to be with less than half a point. Less than a point. Yeah. But I think Alex Sink wins it. All right, folks, until next week, this is David Kaylor thanking you for tuning in to Law Talk.